Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. I learned that lesson the hard way when my stepdaughter's cruelest words finally shattered my heart, and her future. The silence that followed Carrara's words was deafening. Around our Christmas dinner table, time seemed frozen as her declaration hung in the air like poison. Some people aren't worth calling dad. The turkey grew cold. The flickering candlelight cast shadows that seemed to dance with mockery. And in that moment, 17 years of love, sacrifice, and unwavering devotion crumbled to ash. My name is Frank, and this is the story of how I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. When I first met Sophia at a downtown coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday morning, I had no idea I was about to inherit a family. She was magnetic, one of those women who commanded attention without trying, with ambition burning bright in her dark eyes. We talked for hours that first day, coffee growing cold as we shared stories and dreams. I was smitten completely and utterly. What I didn't know was that Sophia was harboring a secret that would reshape my entire existence. For 3 months we dated like any other couple. Dinners out, weekend getaways, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. I was falling hard, already imagining a future with this incredible woman. Then came the night that changed everything. "There's something I need to tell you," Sophia said, her voice trembling as we sat on her couch, the city lights twinkling beyond her apartment window. "I have a daughter." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because I was opposed to children, but because the woman I was falling in love with had been living a double life. Carrara was 4 years old, living with her grandparents 200 miles away while Sophia built her career in the city. Her father. Sophia's voice cracked as she told me the story. She'd been 18, desperately in love with a boy who promised her the world. When she told him she was pregnant, he denied everything, called her a liar, and disappeared like smoke. Months later he'd returned with apologies and demands for visitation, but by then Sophia had seen his true colors. He was trouble, drugs, petty crime, a revolving door of bad decisions. She couldn't risk exposing her daughter to that chaos. As I listened to her story, something shifted inside me. This wasn't a woman with baggage. This was a warrior who'd made impossible choices to protect her child. And that little girl, living hours away from her mother, deserved better than an absent father and a part-time parent. "If we're going to do this," I said, taking her hands in mine, "then we do it right. Bring Carrara home. Let me be what she needs." The words came from my heart, but I had no idea what they would cost me. 6 months after Sophia and I married, Carrara came to live with us permanently. At 5 years old, she was a whirlwind of energy and curiosity, with her mother's dark eyes and a smile that could light up a room. Those early days were magical. I threw myself into fatherhood with the passion of a man who'd been waiting his whole life for this role. I taught her to ride a bike in our driveway, her delighted squeals echoing through the neighborhood as she finally found her balance. I was there for every scraped knee, every bedtime story, every school play where she forgot her lines but beamed when she spotted me in the audience. When she started calling me Daddy naturally, without prompting, I thought my heart might burst from joy. 2 years later, Sophia and I welcomed our biological daughter. I made a conscious decision that would define our family dynamic. Both girls would receive equal love, equal attention, equal opportunities. There would be no step and reel in our house, just 2 daughters who were equally mine. Money was tight in those early years, but I was already thinking ahead. College tuition was climbing every year, and I refused to let either of my girls start their adult lives drowning in debt. Without telling Sophia, I opened 2 separate college funds, contributing the same amount to each every month. It wasn't much at first, but with time and compound interest it grew. By the time Carrara reached high school, her fund held over $120,000, enough to cover 4 years at a good state university. I never told her about the money. It was going to be my surprise gift for her 18th birthday, my way of showing her that even though we didn't share blood, I'd always planned for her future as carefully as any biological father would. That money would become the weapon she unknowingly handed me for my revenge. The change in Carrara began subtly when she turned 14. The girl who used to run to the door when I came home from work started barely acknowledging my presence. The daughter who used to beg for one more bedtime story now spent evenings locked in her room, emerging only for dinner, and even then she was a ghost at our table. I told myself it was normal teenage behavior. All kids went through phases, pushed boundaries, tested limits. I remained patient, continuing to show up for every school event, every parent conference, every moment she needed me, whether she wanted me there or not. Then I discovered the truth behind her transformation. It started with strange phone calls, hushed conversations that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Her behavior grew more secretive, more hostile. Finally, I confronted Sophia, demanding answers. "It's her father," Sophia admitted, unable to meet my eyes. "He's been calling her. He says he wants to build a relationship, make up for lost time." The betrayal was swift and brutal. Not just from Carrera but from Sophia, my wife, my partner, the woman who'd promised we were in this together. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. "He's still her father, Frank." I couldn't tell him no. But she could tell me no, apparently. She could exclude me from decisions about the child I'd been raising for over a decade. She could watch my daughter slip away and say nothing. From that moment, Carrera's transformation accelerated. The girl who used to seek my approval now looked at me with barely concealed contempt. Every attempt at connection was met with eye rolls and sighs. Every word of guidance was dismissed as controlling behavior from someone who wasn't her real dad. Still, I persevered. I loved her through the hostility, supported her through the rebellion, and continued planning for her future even as she pushed me further away. For Carrera's 17th birthday, I spent weeks researching the perfect gift. I wanted something meaningful, practical, and generous, something that would show her how much she meant to me despite the growing distance between us. After careful consideration, I bought her a brand new Honda Civic. Silver, reliable, safe, the perfect first car for a teenager heading to college. I imagined her face lighting up with surprise and gratitude. I pictured her throwing her arms around me, maybe even calling me Dad again like she used to. Instead, I got the performance of a lifetime. When Carrera saw the car in our driveway, her face didn't show joy or excitement. It showed disappointment so profound it might as well have been disgust. "Where's the Benz?" she asked, her voice flat and cold. I thought she was joking. Months earlier, she'd shown me a Mercedes-Benz GLC 300 on her phone, calling it her dream car. But that was just teenage fantasy talk, wasn't it? "Carrera, this is a great car," I said, trying to salvage the moment. "It's reliable, safe, affordable to maintain. It'll last you through college and beyond." But nothing I said mattered. In her eyes, I had failed her in the most spectacular way possible. The Honda wasn't just inadequate, it was insulting. It was proof that I didn't really know her, didn't really care about her dreams. When I brought up her reaction with Sophia later, hoping for support or at least understanding, my wife simply shrugged. "She's a teenager, Frank. Don't take it personally." But how could I not take it personally when everything had become personal? Every gesture was scrutinized, every attempt at parenting was questioned, every expression of love was rejected. The Honda incident became Carrera's favorite weapon. No matter what I did afterward, covering school expenses, paying for her tutoring, supporting her extracurricular activities, she would find a way to circle back to that car. It represented everything she believed was wrong with me. I was cheap, I didn't understand her, I wasn't her real father. The breaking point came during what should have been a routine conversation about her increasingly late nights. I was worried, not controlling, not overbearing, just concerned about my 17-year-old daughter coming home after midnight with no explanation. "I need you to let us know where you are," I said, keeping my voice calm and reasonable. "It's not safe out there so late." Her response was volcanic in its intensity. "You're always trying to control my life." She screamed, her face twisted with fury. "Why do you even care? You're not even my real father." The words hit me like physical blows, each one calculated to cause maximum damage. But she wasn't finished. "Even my real father doesn't act all controlling like you do. You're doing way too much for a stepfather." I stood there in our living room, the room where I'd taught her to play chess, where we'd watched countless movies together, where I'd held her when she cried about middle school drama, and felt something fundamental break inside me. Sophia witnessed this entire exchange from the kitchen doorway. She said nothing. Did nothing. Offered no support, no correction, no acknowledgement that her daughter had just eviscerated the man who'd been her father in every way that mattered for over a decade. That silence spoke volumes. In that moment, I realized I'd been fighting for this family alone. When Carrera left for college that fall, a part of me held on to hope that distance might provide perspective. Maybe she'd realize what she was leaving behind. Maybe she'd appreciate the stability and love I'd provided all these years. When Christmas arrived and she came home for the holidays, I saw it as an opportunity for redemption. She'd mentioned a designer handbag once in passing and I'd tracked it down, an expensive Prada bag that had cost me a month of overtime. I wrapped it carefully and wrote a card signed Dad, because despite everything, that's still what I wanted to be for her. Christmas dinner started beautifully. The whole family was gathered around our dining room table. Sophia, both girls, Sophia's sister and her family. The food was perfect, the conversation flowed, and for a brief moment, it felt like the old days when we were truly a family. Then Sophia's sister made an innocent comment. "These girls are so lucky to have such a wonderful dad." I didn't expect gratitude or acknowledgement from Carrera. But I never could have predicted what came next. She let out a loud, dismissive snort, the kind of sound you make when someone tells a particularly bad joke. Then, without even looking up from her plate, she delivered the killing blow. "Some people aren't worth calling dad." The room went silent. Even the Christmas music seemed to fade into nothing. I felt the blood drain from my face as 17 years of memories flashed before my eyes. Teaching her to swim, helping with homework, cheering from the sidelines at soccer games, holding her when she had nightmares, planning for her future, loving her unconditionally. All of it meant nothing to her. I was nothing to her. I smiled, not from joy, but from the strange clarity that comes when your worst fears are finally confirmed. I stood up slowly, walked to the Christmas tree, and picked up the beautifully wrapped Prada bag I'd bought her. "Don't touch any of the gifts I've given you over the years," I said, my voice calm and controlled. "Including the car." I paused, making sure I had everyone's attention. "And I just canceled your college fund. Good luck." The silence that followed was even more profound than before. Carrera's face went white as she processed what I'd said. Sophia stared at me in shock. But I was already walking away, the Prada bag still tucked under my arm. They thought I was bluffing. I wasn't. That night, while the rest of the family dealt with the fallout from dinner, I sat in my home office and logged into Carrera's college account. With a few clicks, I transferred every single $120,000 of love, sacrifice and hope, into her sister's fund instead. Then I blocked Carrera on every platform I could think of. Social media, phone, email, everything. Not out of petty spite but out of self-preservation. I had nothing left to say to her, and I couldn't bear to hear whatever justifications or accusations she might throw at me. By morning she was gone. Packed her bags and left for her biological father's house without a word to anyone. According to Sophia, Carrera had plenty to say about me once she was safely away. I was controlling, manipulative, and trying too hard to be something I wasn't. She was right about one thing: I had been trying too hard. But I was done with that now. Sophia tried to guilt me into reversing my decision. "You can't give up on her," she pleaded. "What kind of example are you setting?" I looked at my wife, the woman who'd stayed silent while her daughter destroyed me piece by piece, and said, "She gave up on me first." I just finally heard her loud and clear. When Sophia continued pushing, I stopped her with a question that cut to the heart of our marriage. "Do you want to join her? Because I've watched you stand by and say nothing while she disrespected me in front of you. You let her treat me like garbage and never said a word." She went quiet after that. 6 months of silence followed. No calls, no texts, no attempts at reconciliation from either Carrera or her mother on her behalf. I won't lie, there were moments when I wondered if I'd been too harsh, too final in my response. But then I'd remember that Christmas dinner, remember the contempt in her voice, and my resolve would harden again. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. My younger daughter approached me one afternoon, her face serious beyond her years. "Dad, can you let my sister come home?" I looked at this child, my biological child, but no more precious to me than Carrera had once been, and gave her the truth. I didn't send her away, sweetheart. She left on her own. The door was always open for her to come back. A few days later, Sophia joined the campaign. After months of silence, she finally found her voice to advocate for her older daughter. "Can Carrera come home?" she asked. I gave her the same answer I'd given our younger daughter, with one crucial addition. "She can stay here, but I'm done being her father." When Carrera finally showed up at our door, she looked different. Not physically, but there was a weight to her presence that hadn't been there before. The weight of hard-learned lessons and bitter reality. She asked to talk, and I agreed. We sat in the living room where she'd delivered some of her cruelest words, and she began to cry. She apologized. She admitted she'd made a mistake. She told me she'd tried to call, tried to reach out, but realized I'd blocked her everywhere. She was right, I had. I let her speak, let her cry, let her pour out months of regret and recognition. When she was finished, I looked at her calmly and delivered my verdict. "You can stay, but I won't be responsible for you anymore. You burned that bridge." I paused, making sure she understood the finality of my decision. "And if you disrespect me again, you'll be gone for good." She didn't argue or talk back. She just nodded, and in that moment I think she finally understood the difference between someone who chose to love her and someone who simply shared her DNA. Later, I learned the truth about her time with her biological father. The fairy tale she'd imagined, where her real dad would understand her better, love her more, give her everything I supposedly couldn't, had turned into a nightmare. Her father couldn't provide the structure, support, or comfort I'd worked so hard to give her for 17 years. He didn't have the means, the stability, or frankly, the desire to be the parent she'd fantasized about. His wife saw Carrera as an inconvenience, an extra mouth to feed in an already strained household. I never rubbed it in her face, but I did overhear her once, talking on the phone to a friend. Her voice was tired and defeated as she whispered, "I saw hell over there." That's when I knew she'd finally lived the reality she thought she wanted. And it didn't come close to what I'd tried to give her. Today, months later, Carrera is back in our house, but not back in my heart. The college fund remains in her sister's account. The car sits in our driveway, but she doesn't drive it. The gifts from all those birthdays and Christmases have been redistributed or donated. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Some words, once spoken, can never be taken back. Some relationships, once broken, can never be fully repaired. I'm not made of stone. Could things change someday? Perhaps. But it would require more than apologies and tears. It would require her to understand that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice made every day through good times and bad. It would require her to recognize that the man who wasn't her biological father was still the one who chose to be her dad when it mattered most. Until then, she'll have to build her future without the foundation I'd spent 17 years constructing for her. The money I saved, the opportunities one provided, the unconditional love I offered, all of it is gone, transferred to someone who never made me question my worth as a father. They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that chosen family can be stronger than blood, and more fragile too. When that bond is broken by cruelty and contempt, the pieces don't always fit back together the same way. Carrera chose her biological father over the man who'd been her dad in every way that mattered. She got exactly what she asked for. And so did I. Some people, as she so eloquently put it, aren't worth calling dad. But some daughters, I've learned, aren't worth the title either. The Christmas reckoning taught us both that lesson, and neither of us will ever forget it.